Good morning. So, we're going to talk about quantum computing in this panel. Quantum computing and more precisely the applications in precision medicine and healthcare. And we have a great panel here. My name is Freke Heijman. I'm an ecosystem builder, founded Quantum Delta and now my own consultancy company. We have Sabrina Maniscalco, who is CEO and founder of Algorithmiq. We have Jean-Francois Bobier, who's partner and director at Boston Consulting Group here in Paris. And we have Dave Messina, who is the general partner at Pioneer Fund, a healthcare fund from San Diego. And before we dive in, I think it's good to give a little bit of an overview because it's now 100 years ago that Heisinger coined the uncertainty principle, which is the foundation of quantum mechanics, saying that it's not possible to define the position of a particle and the momentum of a particle at the same time. So there's fundamental uncertainty, and that is the basis of quantum mechanics. And that has led to an enormous wave of technology already, because the transistor is also based on quantum mechanics. The laser is built on quantum mechanics. And now we're in the second wave of this technology, building new computers that calculate like nature does, with qubits that can be in a superposition of states, leading to an exponential speed up of calculations. So I think we're in an extremely exciting times. You probably have seen all kinds of recent breakthroughs. End of last year, there was a big breakthrough in the error correction. So there's now a way to scale up the number of qubits and reducing the numbers of errors, which is very important to get this technology to market. And the good news is also that in Europe we have a very strong ecosystem actually. So we have many startups, many scale-ups here in Paris. We have Pascal, we have Alice and Bob. In Finland, well, we have Sabrina, also others. The Netherlands, Q-Blocks, a big electronic company. So it's an amazing time to be here. And well, let's dive into the topic now, because what can quantum computers do in medicine and healthcare? So what's the status of the technology? So Sabrina, maybe you can elaborate. Oh, before, please, if you have any questions, send them in via Slido. You can use the app or scan the QR code, because we're happy to take them. Sabrina.
Yes, well, first of all, I'm really glad to be here. This is a topic very close to my heart. I will say a few words about myself and Algorithmiq, and then I will give you a very brief answer. I'm sure there will be time to go more in depth into use cases. I'm CEO and co-founder of Algorithmiq. Algorithmiq is a quantum software startup, specifically working in the healthcare and life science vertical. What we do is that we program quantum computers. We have been doing this since many years, actually since before the Algorithmiq was born. But what is interesting is that programming quantum computers nowadays really means to discover new languages. And discovering new languages is needed in order to identify use cases that are of relevance for end users, but also aligned with the capabilities of quantum computers of today and of tomorrow and of the future. So this job really relies on an incredible multidisciplinary team that one has to, is our main asset really, the team that works together in order to combine infrastructure software, and this is one of our products, the digital quantum interface that is low level in the stack and allows to transform theory into real-world impact application, and of course the more high-level application software for healthcare and life sciences. And we have a number of partnerships. Our product, Digital Quantum Interface, is already available in the IBM marketplace. But when it comes to healthcare and life sciences, we work, for example, with Cleveland Clinic on applications for photodynamic therapy for cancer treatment. Also, we model and optimize drugs, and in particular drug metabolism. So it's really related to precision medicine. And this modeling combines quantum computer and machine learning and supercomputing approach in a pipeline which is hybrid. And then another application is in epilepsy and understanding better from the data of the EEG when surgery is successful or not for patients. But we can talk a bit later. This is just, I would say, some examples of use cases that we are at the moment developing and working on with our partners.
Very interesting to hear that. And I think you are also investing in some of these quantum companies. What is your view on the applications in healthcare?
Sure. Hello, everybody. Welcome to, good to see you. I'm Dave Messina, and I invest out of Pioneer Fund. We are successful bio and health founders backing early stage founders who are creating the future of human health. And among these are quantum. We've been looking at advanced computing and quantum companies for several years. And we have two of our recent investments in this space are Conductor Quantum, which uses AI to create qubits by understanding quantum transport in semiconductor chips. So this is a software for hardware. And then more of a healthcare application, we've backed Angstrom AI out of the UK, who are using AI approaches for quantum accurate molecular modeling, which is useful for drug discovery. And this is, in fact, one of, I think, the key early applications that we all see for quantum to impact human health. So how, well, let's start with why is molecular modeling important? Well, drug companies need to understand how a given drug interacts with the human body for both safety and to know whether it works. And today, how do we do this? So we can use machine learning approaches. So AlphaFold won the Nobel Prize just a couple of years ago. And this is a very fast method, but somewhat inaccurate. If you want the highest accuracy, you have to do a laboratory experiment, but this is clearly slow and expensive. That's the gold standard. There's also molecular dynamics approaches, which are more accurate than ML, but slow and computationally expensive relatively. So quantum is a great opportunity here to have the best of both worlds, right? We can have much faster computation that is as accurate as we see out of the laboratory. Today, we're still in early innings, but the future is bright. So the size of the molecular modeling that's possible today with quantum is still quite small. But as the number of qubits we see increase, we'll certainly see larger models there too.
Yeah. Yeah, in essence, the chemical processes in the body, they are quantum mechanical. So it's very tough to work with that in classical machines. So Jean-Francois, what is that also your view that healthcare and will be the first application of quantum computing, or do you see other?
So hello, so I'm Jean-Francois Bobier. I'm a partner at BCG or Boston Consulting Group. We are proud sponsors of these events since 10 years now, so we are really invested in the deep tech ecosystem, and I lead our quantum computing research. I've been leading this for 6 years, and we have published about 15 papers on bcg.com about quantum computing. One of them was about the impact of quantum computing in pharma, and we teamed up with our healthcare practice to look at the use cases. And it's true that there are a lot of needs in the pharma companies to understand better and have more predictive models. They have, you know, how we call that, computational drug discovery teams to help them, you know, do that. But they have a set of tools that, you know, is rather limited. One thing also that we discovered when we did our research was that actually they're also interested in using quantum in clinical part of the drug discovery process. You have to keep in mind that this, you know, finding a drug from the idea of a drug to you know, the approval of a drug, you spend easily billions of dollars of R&D just for one drug. And a big part of it is in clinical trials. So if you are able to predict better biomarkers and stuff like that, it's also very helpful. So to your questions now, clearly we have, when you look at quantum computing, it does two interesting things. So one is, and this is a foundational thing that you mentioned, Richard Feynman, the Nobel Prize, who really was the main sponsor of quantum computing, he proposed quantum computing to simulate nature. Because a lot of, the quantum theory explains everything except gravity. If you look at the color of my gene, if you want to know what is the wavelength, the only way you can know it is through looking at the molecule and looking at the excited state and the ground state, and it will give you the light, the color of the thing, and that's the only way you can do it. There is no, you can use gravity, it will tell you nothing about that. So the only thing that the new scientists still have to come up is with the single equation explaining both gravity and and quantum mechanics is still not there, but people are working on it. So anyway, simulating nature, clearly, healthcare is clearly part of it. So it really comes into the first use case from that standpoint. There's another category of use case around just using quantum for maths, because actually, if you look at what you can do from a purely mathematical standpoint, it's quite interesting. There's a guy, 10 years after Feynman, Peter Shor, who came up with a Shor algorithm, and he just used the maths of quantum, and he came up with this algorithm to factor numbers. And so we believe actually there will be also applications in there, especially in finance. The nice thing about finance is that it's a sweet spot for quantum because they spend a lot on IT. Typically, Goldman Sachs spends more than $10 billion a year on IT, so quantum can play a role in there. So we see pharma, we see finance, and we see material science. Actually, material science is a sweeter spot from my standpoint, because the problem of pharma is that you still have to understand. It's always in, a biome, in some, in the blood, and there are a lot of interactions. You cannot. It's never one drug with one target. It's in a whole system. So that's the funny. The interesting part of pharma, but also the difficult part.
Yeah. So let's dive a little bit in that, because indeed in pharma you have to go through clinical trials and it's a whole process. So I think the bringing the pharma sector with companies like you together, it's very important. Can you share a little bit how that works, how this partnership with end users?
Yes, of course, I think that this has been already mentioned, and I would like to stress it again. There are many problems that are important in drug discovery, in the pipeline of drug discovery, which are efficiently tackled by methods that are classical, that exist already, okay? So one of the open questions is where exactly there is the need, for which use cases you really need actually a quantum computer. And we should remember, not a quantum computer alone, because as you were mentioning before, the complexity of the biology that is really needed when you do computational drug discovery is such that in many cases you will need to integrate the quantum computer in a pipeline which is completely classical. So when we develop frameworks, for example, for drug optimization, we do so by combining classical molecular dynamics, by combining classical methods, and then extracting that part, which is hard to do by any classical means. Now, one of the examples that we have identified with medical doctor at Cleveland Clinic is what I mentioned before, photodynamic therapy. What is this? This is an alternative therapy for cancer treatment, which is particularly interesting since it does not have any side effects. The patient eats a so-called proto-drug. It's called a photosensitizer, which is not active. It's a drug that is not active, and then it becomes activated only upon interaction with light. So let's assume you have a skin cancer. You see the location of the skin cancer. The light irradiates after eating the photosensitizer, it irradiated on the location, and the drug becomes active. It becomes active and kills the cancer cells. This is a very simplified description description of how it works. But one point which is important is that the key mechanism is precisely the interaction of light with the molecule that is the drug, the photosensitizer. Now, this interaction of light with the electronic structure, we call it, of the molecule, which is very complex, is a fundamentally quantum mechanical problem. And our bioengineers and medical doctors tell us the best methods known, approximate methods known classically, conventionally used for the experts, TD-DFT is one of such methods, just fail. They are not reliable. They are not accurate.
Can I ask, when will this be on the market? Because
Yes.
I think this is a huge improvement.
Absolutely. So what we are doing is we have been one of the, I think 8 at the moment, teams that have been awarded the Welcome Leap Q4Bio program. Is a challenge that is now ending in the second phase and starting the third phase. The third phase is the implementation on hardware of this pipeline, and it's precisely for photodynamic therapy. And the end of the third phase will be the experimental demonstration on a molecule of the order of 100 qubits. The active space is 100 qubits, and this is planned to be by the end of 2026. So we are preparing for this experiment now, and we see this as being commercially deployed in 2027. Okay?
That's fantastic.
That is the plan.
Thanks. Well, I see there's some questions from the audience, so I think that's great to engage in that. And we touched upon it a little bit already before we entered the stage. It's about quantum advantage. So can you give an example where quantum shows advantage over AlphaFold, for example? Well, maybe...
Sure, I'll start, and I'm sure the other folks have examples as well. So one example I gave was in molecular simulation. So again, at a small scale today, it is possible to more accurately model the interaction of small molecules with water and other solvents than you can using classical approaches. Now, this is maybe more accurate to say you can equivalently model them because these are all trade-offs, right? So you can have a very accurate computation that takes a long time, classically. You can have a very accurate computation that takes a short time, quantum. So these are still early days, early innings for quantum advantage. But this is really the inflection point that we want to see. And Sabrina talked about how this will be first a hybrid approach, and maybe for a while a hybrid approach. So today, classical computing is not really just one form of computing anyway. All of our laptops that we use every day are hybrid computers today. We have CPUs and GPUs that are each specialized for different types of compute. And this model will also be true when we start to adopt quantum computing.
Jean-Francois, you want to add on this?
Yeah, one thing I would like to say is that AI is as good as its training data sets. And the problem that you have is that if you look at the space, the druggable space, you could do 10 to the power of 50 drugs. So it's very large, and actually we only know a small part of it. And it's very cumbersome experiments, like to do, go, try. And so, yes, we've seen AI doing a lot of inroads, but keep in mind that AI can only predict stuff that are close to the training data sets that we use. The real advantage that quantum will bring is that we can explore parts that we actually don't know, because, again, it can solve exactly the quantum mechanic equations. And so that's the exciting part, I think.
Yeah. And a question related to this, does the claimed quantum advantage hinge on quantum Monte Carlo largely? Maybe that's for the professor?
Can you repeat, sorry? What?
It's, well, the Monte Carlo simulations, and does the claimed quantum advantage hinge on quantum Monte Carlo largely? So,
well, first of all, it depends. First of all, the claimed quantum advantage is a claimed quantum advantage of algorithm to be demonstrated, or is it something which has been already done? Because we do know that at the moment, really one of the main inflection points will be the demonstration of quantum advantage for something that is scientifically useful and commercially useful. So this has to happen, is one of the main goals of the whole ecosystem. So this is important to remember, okay? Then there are, however,
happened yet.
Yes,
or some claim it has happened, like
Exactly.
Google claims it has happened, but it was a theoretical.
No, of course, the quantum supremacy from Google is something which it has happened, but it is not for a scientifically useful problem yet. So it is for a problem which is designed in a way that quantum computers are advantageous for that. But you can't immediately use it for anything which would be useful, for example, for life sciences or for anything, actually. So it's a huge milestone, but it is one of the moments and we need to see others in order for the field and ecosystem to flourish. However, when it comes to Monte Carlo, and comparison with Monte Carlo is a very technical question, there are proposed methods that are useful for quantum chemistry, that in turn will be useful in many industries, including simulating molecules for drug discovery. And there are algorithms that claim that this can be done in comparing with Monte Carlo or using sampling from a quantum computer. It remains to be implemented and demonstrated, but it is certainly a very interesting pathways to be pursued.
Thank you. So let's take one other question and then dive back into our own sort of flow. We talk about responsible AI. Are we looking at responsible quantum computing as well?
It's a question I had in the past, and I say, look, it's... so part of the question comes from the fact that quantum is considered as a dual-use technology. And actually, it's invested by the CIA, NATO, and over 3-letter agencies. So it's considered dual use because of the crypto use cases, and the fact that you can use a quantum computer to crack or to hack your systems. So that's one of the concerns. I think we are a long way from that happening. The earlier would be probably 2035, which is the time that the US government had set itself to be what we call PQC ready, so resistant to quantum attacks. And then there's another field that we could discuss that we have the same with AI to some extent, that maybe you could use quantum to discover cool drugs, but also maybe to, I don't know, develop biological weapons. We are very far from here. From what I see, the quantum community is very, positive, sharing. I've worked in over areas of deep tech where, people keep close to the vest. Every time something happens in quantum is published. So I wouldn't care too much about that. But yes, there's the dual use part that comes often in the discussions.
Yeah, and one thing I would like to add also, the worry that there is that the digital divide or the concentration of power and capital with fewer people, that could increase with a technology like this. And for instance, there are international fora such as the UN, today of this year's the International Year of Quantum of the United Nations, but also the World Economic Forum. So there are international fora working on setting the conditions and enabling conditions to have it as a force for good, so to say. Okay, well, let's go back into the topic of our panel on what challenges we face. And it can be ecosystem challenges, technological challenges, but to get this to market, to get to this quantum future. Dave.
Sure, I'll start. So from an investor perspective, one of the biggest challenges is finding talented teams that are working in this space. We know that quantum seems early and is early in many ways, but it's also happening faster than we thought. Just a few months ago, Frika mentioned the 2 significant advances in the last few months. We already are seeing progress that is faster than expected. Some of the companies that we work with are moving faster towards their milestones than expected. And so you you have to really think a step ahead and try to skate to where the puck is going to be. You can't wait for the innovation to be apparent to everyone to lose an advantage. So I think anybody out there who is thinking about a quantum company or starting a quantum application in healthcare or other fields, you really can't start too soon yet. We have to have those focuses now. At the same time, from an infrastructure point of view, it would be important to meet people where they're at today. So there are lots of technologies that are only usable today by a few people who are experts in the field. And as we develop them, having the toolkits and tool sets to bridge the gap between the computing that we do today and the computing we want to do tomorrow is critical. And I think there's a big opportunity to start a company in that space too.
Okay, so it's a call for action. Smart people, smart teams, smart companies. Thank you. Jean-Francois?
So we run a survey every 2 years on quantum adoption, and so we interrogate the main Fortune 500 companies, and we ask them, what are their quantum programs and how much they spend. There's a clear increased adoption in pharma as we monitor over the years, and more than half of them have multi-million programs in quantum. So they are so the technology is not there yet, but they are investing in quantum, what is called quantum preparedness. So basically, they are exploring the use cases. They are exploring what are the techniques they could start considering for the next drug they're going to develop, and so that's why we are invested. So there's a clear interest. The main question, in my opinion, because I worked in pharma as well, is that they will be sensitive to economics to some extent. So it's not only the quantum computing companies will have to deliver on the science, and the computers will have to work, which is hard enough. But another thing will be they will need to make them cheap enough so that they can be adopted. Typically, if you look at pharma, they make campaigns that they run more than in the hundreds of thousands of candidates. With quantum, we could probably run more, but you have to keep in mind that 1 hour of compute today with a quantum computer is in the couple of thousands of dollars. And if you take an HPC computer, it's more in the cents. So there's a big gap. I'm not saying it's it's not comparing apple to apple. You have for the use case where quantum computers are, they tend to be more powerful, but still economics will matter a lot. So unfortunately, that's one more thing I tell to hardware companies. So not only make it work, but make it work cheap, please.
Sabrina?
Yes, I would like to highlight some risks that are more related to startups and others that are more instead technical. From the startup perspective, of course, this is something we have heard a lot also during this conference. We do need, because it's a very deep technology really, we do need de-risking actions and from governments through procurements, and we do need the support from, again, the whole ecosystem. So not only from adopters that are pharma, and so industry adoption from early adopters and so on, but also from government. And there has been quite a lot of it for hardware, but there has not been yet sufficient when it comes to software and applications. And when I talk about software and application, I talk about what is missing now in order to demonstrate that this technology can bring real value, okay, economically. So it's really important. Then I would like to add to this that in some cases, infrastructure software, so software that is really working at the level of quantum computers, like some of the things that we have deployed nowadays, allows to use less the quantum computer. So actually, it costs much less to use quantum computer with a software that, for example, remove errors in post-processing using GPUs, then use directly the quantum computer itself. So there are a lot of economic aspects that you were mentioning which are solved via skillful software. So all these aspects are key, but of course if you think in terms of the technology, clearly we need to have more performant hardware with less errors, and algorithms that allow to transition from today's quantum computers to the early fault-tolerant or error-corrected quantum computers. So this will happen in the next couple of years, and we need to see a constant integration between, or co-design between the software and algorithms and the hardware as we progress, and ideally an alignment with end users' needs in order to develop impactful applications. So I think these are the key factors for the ecosystem to really develop further.
And as I listen to this, it feels like an optimistic sense that we're having here. So there are challenges, technological things, economic things, people, talent, but I don't have the feeling there are roadblocks that prohibit this from maturing. Or do I oversee? Is it that we're in a phase that we are optimistic that this quantum advantage will be there in the next couple of years?
What I can say is that, I mean, as a co-founder who has decided really to work on quantum computing and programming quantum computing, I have to be optimistic, obviously, and I am, and I have reasons to be. I think it's one of the most difficult challenges nowadays by far, because it's a very complex technology. There is progress, but we should remember that we keep comparing or benchmarking with a technology that is classical computing, which is developed since centuries, really. So obviously, the fact that nowadays we can, for certain problems, really work au par. So we are, in some cases, even beating some of the state-of-the-art algorithms. This is a tremendous achievement. Yes. So I think definitely in the next 1 year or two, we will see a major inflection point. This I'm 100% convinced. And quantum advantage will be one of such inflection points for scientifically useful problems.
Part of my job as an investor is to be an optimist. And so certainly I am optimistic, but it isn't just having to have a crystal ball to know what the future is going to be. It's a little bit easier in the sense that you can look at trajectories and timelines and try to draw reasonable probabilities into the future. 5 years ago, would any of you have expected AI to be where it is today? I don't think I would have, even though OpenAI, I was aware of it when it started and was able to watch some of its progress. And I don't think the folks at OpenAI knew that ChatGPT would be the significant moment that it has been for all of us and for AI. Quantum has not had that ChatGPT moment yet, but I think there are encouraging signs that it is coming soon, and there's certainly a lot of potential to be rung there in a reasonable timeline. 5 years ago, I think quantum looked a lot different than it does today, and so I expect to see significant progress, and that's why we're looking closely at it over just a short time horizon.
Thanks. Jean-Francois?
So I agree. I think we will see quantum advantage clearly in the next 2-3 years maximum. And because quantum is an exponential company, from that point on, it will really start to make more and more inroads. But we have to be, so it's a marathon being in quantum for a lot of people who have been in the industry like me for years, is that we'll still have to for example, factoring numbers, as I mentioned, is probably still 10 years away. So there will be a lot of development that still need to happen, and we will still need to be patient. Also, another problem that we will very quickly have is our capacity to build our hardware. Currently, even the best quantum companies out there, like Quantinuum, IBM, Pascal, they make 1 or 2 computers every year, max. So if you look at where the numbers need to be, after 2030, they'll need to ramp up production like crazy. And it's difficult today. They need PhDs like to calibrate the machine. It takes months and months to do it. And then of course there will be the scaling challenge. So we have a clear runway until 2030 because within the current physics in a single QPU we can scale. But after that we'll need to network QPUs to scale. And that is a less proven part, but clearly companies are working on it. And I know their roadmap, but still a lot of challenges. But again, a lot of reasons to be optimistic in any deep tech. That's the also interesting part.
Okay, so we're entering in the last 5 minutes of this panel. So if you have any questions, please go into Slido or scan the QR code and we get to address them. We have here one, I think it's for you, Sabrina. At Algorithmiq, do you use quantum computers of IBM or Google? And where did your first funding come from?
Yes, we do use, of course, IBM was one of our strategic partners since many years, but we don't use only IBM quantum computers. We have partnerships with hardware company that use different physical implementation of qubits. And this is very important because we don't know yet which physical platform will be the winning platform from a scalable and really quantum computer that can be used in different industries. And it could also be that there will be combinations of physical platforms, or also there could be certain quantum computers, say photonics-based or cold atom-based, that will be used for certain applications, and others will be instead winning one for other applications, for other verticals. So for us, as a quantum algorithms and software company, it's important to prove that our algorithm solutions and platforms are hardware agnostic, so that we can apply them and optimize them across different platforms. So that's what we are doing, and we are working with several hardware providers.
Thanks
for that.
Yeah, and this is more a general question maybe for you, Jean-Francois. Is the quantum computing environment, so I think the sector at large, takes feedback from the health domain? So is there an opportunity for the health domain to give feedback?
So yes, because as I mentioned, most of the big pharmas are investing in quantum. So they are in touch with the startups, and they have their say on what are their use cases, what are the problems they want to solve. So I think there are conversations going on. There was even some years ago a consortium called QFarm to do that. So there were multiple initiatives. So I think there's a good dialogue, and there are a few startups like Sabrina's that are focused on healthcare, but there's others like Qubit Pharmaceuticals and others. So we start to see a stack for healthcare coming.
Okay, so let's go to a closing round, and I would like to ask you, what do you think people in the room can do or should do, maybe even to prepare for the quantum future or to help shape the quantum future?
So I think that convergence is key. Convergence between AI and biotech and quantum. Each of these disciplines are high impact, and the cross-disciplinary opportunities there are very large. And so multidisciplinary teams that can work together on those are going to be successful in the future. While we see early days for quantum, the future is sooner than you think. So be prepared, be optimistic, be a little patient, and it will come.
Thanks.
So for quantum, we will need two important ingredients. I'm very technical here, but so we need the hardware, and it's still the bottleneck right now, the major bottleneck. So that's why most of the investors have been, and the governments have been looking into hardware, because that's without that we can't do anything. But the second thing we need is software. It has not been invested enough So we have only 10 primitives, more or less, that we use every time we do a software. So we need more efforts, more research, so that it can work. But again, it's being worked on.
Thank you. And before you go in, there's one more question, so maybe you can take that up as well. Do you use gate-based algorithms or other types of algorithms? That's from Jürgen.
Very technical audience we have today.
Yeah, yes. I wonder if it's just one person who is very specialized. No, I'm joking. We at Algorithmiq, we work on algorithms for gate-based quantum computing, digital quantum computers, but of course there are also analog quantum computers methodologies that are deployed and use different types of algorithms. So this is the most technical answer. But if I have to say about something that the audience may be doing for quantum is, if you are interested, just explore resources. For example, like QPlayLearn. We have, if you go to qplaylearn.com, this is a platform where you can learn about the basics of quantum physics, the basic of quantum computing, also for investors, for CEOs of companies, and it includes video games. It includes different layers of material, so that you can really first engaged, then learn more, and then even become an expert if you want. So just be open, stay curious, and have fun with quantum.
Well, with that positive note, I would like to thank the panelists for this amazing panel. And yeah, let's go to the quantum future.
Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.